All right, I'm excited to be here with Lance Graulich, franchise expert. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Ken. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Yes, sir. I've heard you on some other podcasts, as I mentioned, and love your story. You've become kind of, the franchise guy. You've got a podcast around it, you got a business around it, and you've been associated and involved at the ground floor with some pretty iconic brands. Can you walk us through how that happened?
Yeah, this is the Leaders Lab. So was this a lab accident or was it environmental? In my case, I was born into an entrepreneurial family. I had one grandfather that barely spoke English and built a supermarket empire, and the other grandfather was a tremendous real estate attorney, and whatever buildings his clients didn't buy, he ended up with, it seemed. And Dad was on Wall Street. So it's really what I call the trifecta of investments: business, real estate, Wall Street. Worked on Wall Street for Dad throughout college, high school, college, after college, and realized I didn't want to do trades all day on Wall Street. Wasn't that exciting to me. It didn't even seem that challenging. So I had another relative coax me into joining him with a TGI Fridays franchise in the old days.
Okay.
And I didn't know much about franchising at the time, obviously, but I got excited about it and love the people side of the business. Some people listening are going to be like, people, I don't want to deal with people. But the reality is, I enjoyed that. I love a challenge. I'm a builder, I'm a business builder. I'm not necessarily a maintainer. But that I got bit by the franchise bug, if you will, with TGI Fridays. Helped Uncle Steven and the team go from virtually nothing to 225 million within 5 years. In the old days, at $2.50 a beer, not
Oh,
even.
wow.
It was crazy. But then from there, skipping ahead, I was a franchisee with Wingstop, Krispy Kreme Donuts, president of franchise advisory councils, and love the franchising world, and just love to show people the opportunity of, is a franchise right for you? It can be right for anybody, but the question is, what are you interested in? Your skills are transferable, and I just basically match people up to the best businesses for them. And most people think, like, with McDonald's, that you have to be a millionaire to own a franchise. Cannot be further from the truth. I have franchises that are $60,000 where you can do incredibly well when you apply yourself.
When you got started, what got you? You said it was your uncle that got into it, but who found the franchise? Whose idea was it to approach business in that way instead of doing something on your own?
Yeah, a great question. Uncle Steven was in tech before anybody was really in tech. His
Okay.
company took digital phones, I'm sorry, analog phones, and made them digital. I think that was the first major company that ever did that, and he made a lot of money. And he was fascinated with the food industry and knew that a franchise was right for him. He did not consult me because I was a young guy just out of college, a few years into Wall Street. So he figured I knew nothing about that, but called me and said, "Look, you're a smart guy. Why don't you help me with this thing? I need some guy on the inside that I can trust." And I fell in love with it. I was not interested, being a young guy with not that much money to my name at that point. Living in New York, you spend more than you make in some instances early on.
Sure.
I was fascinated with the opportunity to move from New York across country to Scottsdale, Arizona, the Phoenix metro area. Um, Bright new place for me to spread my wings and work my tail off with them for just over 5 years.
It's funny because I saw you're originally from Brooklyn, which is where I'm sitting right now. I'm in Brooklyn Heights, and I
Ah,
moved
love it.
here. Yeah, and I moved here from Phoenix, so I know both your spots pretty well. So that's what bit you. Were you kind of like his operations guy then, like on the inside, his kind
Yeah,
of right hand?
I initially was really a peon. I had to
Yeah.
learn. He had to hire people that had Friday's experience, that certainly knew the restaurant business better than I did at the time. But holy cow, the training was amazing. Eventually, I actually started. He kind of pulled the rug out. I started as a host.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
I lived in his guest house and started as a host, like at $8 an hour. And I was like, okay, bought a Jeep, didn't even have a roof on it or anything, living the Arizona lifestyle, and worked my way up quickly. And let me tell you, in his huge house, he'd call me over when I was not working in a restaurant, and he'd say, "Hey, Lance, come here. Listen to how I negotiate a lease." And wow, it was really getting my MBA in restaurant ownership, and it was a heck of an experience. That, look, again, I was raised by entrepreneurs, so I was excited. I was like a sponge, and for me, I was just craving knowledge, and this was something I could sink my teeth into.
No, that's really cool. I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I think we're similar in age. What year was that Jeep? I'm just curious because I had a 91 Wrangler.
I've had a lot of Jeeps. That
Okay.
one was really old. That year was 80, probably 89 when I got that Jeep, but that Jeep was like an 84.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I had a 91 that I had for many years. I like that. I like that Jeep a lot. But okay, so you're with him for 5 years. You get the bug. You see Friday's doing well. What was that transition like? Was it, thanks, Uncle, I'm ready to go kind of do my own thing now? Or how
Yeah,
did you end up moving on?
he got bored after 5 years, and we hit about 225 million a year, and he went back to Asia to go build another, specifically Korea, to go build another company. And I called him. I said, "Look, I'm done." And he goes, "Yeah, I told your father you get bored after a period of time. You learned enough, and you're moving on. Okay, I get it. Go do your own thing." And what do you do when you don't have anything to do? Well, I went back to Vegas. At the time I was in Arizona. He had interests in Vegas. I helped him with restaurants in Vegas. So I went back to Vegas, the fun place. Felt like little New York to me. All the food, good people. And so I went back to Vegas, started consulting, which is what you do when you have nothing to do, and share
Sure.
your expertise. And then, in no time, I figured out how to get into other things, and became Krispy Kreme donuts. After I was in the hotel business, I became a food and beverage director. I just kept, Ken, I just kept piling on to my resume.
Right.
I add to the resume that was bigger and badder than I had before. And I eventually became a food and beverage director in a casino, got some partners together, got some money together. Restaurants are not cheap, as you know, very capital intense. And I didn't do anything the easy way. I went for it and got into a partnership with Krispy Kreme. I was invited into that partnership. There was an operator that was not very good, and the gentleman was a Wall Street guy. He was an investment banker, and fell in love with Krispy Kreme, like a lot of people do when they have some extra money. What do? You got to invest your money. So he loved Krispy Kreme, and but his operator wasn't very good. I met him through a family friend that I knew was the operator of Krispy Kreme in New York City, which was the very first Krispy Kreme. But so Krispy Kreme was incredible. I built a $25 million a year franchise, small little franchise in two states, Nevada and Utah. His old operator was gone because he screwed everything up, and we were quite successful. We really, it was an incredible experience for me. But look, I love challenges. So after that, I did my own thing with Wingstop and brought in a bunch of partners. Kind of screwed that up. I was a top franchisee and had a company that was worth a lot of money. But when you bring in partners, Ken, it
Gets
can be
diluted.
pretty bad who you invite to the table. How was that set up? My attorneys, apparently, I didn't know until later, screwed some things up. And I sold my Krispy Kreme my Wingstop franchise prematurely because I just needed to get away from partners. It was a bad scene. It was bad juju, so to speak. But one thing I learned is how to be a top performing franchisee. I was top 1% franchisee at Krispy Kreme, at Wingstop. Then I took some time off, dabbled here and there, and then I consulted for other people. Then I get a call one day about setting up a donut shop, a gourmet donut shop, and I created a brand called Pink Box Donuts,
Okay.
and that became pretty famous in Vegas. And but all within this, I was always asked, "Hey, Lance, how do you find such great people? How do you, have such low turnover? How is your profitability so great in the restaurants that you've run? Give me your secret sauce." So I realized, hey, this restaurant consulting thing is a big deal. which I did for quite a while. And then it ended up being, can you sell franchises for us? And I don't know about you, Ken, but I'm like, sales? I'm a guy from Brooklyn. That's easy. That's like
Right.
innate to me. Um, and I did that for a while, and I said, that's not too difficult. And I realized there's a such thing as franchise brokers. I just have to basically listen to what people are looking for, understand their skills. And here's the key, though, Ken. I listen to people as you would, anybody would. Top executives listen to their people. Well, I'm listening to people that want to get in business for themselves. And I learned what I went through. Do you have an idea that you want to create yourself? Like Pink Box Donuts. Somebody came to me and said, can you create a donut shop for us? I know you're very good in restaurants. So of course I can. And I did. He brought the name, Pink Box, and I brought all the know-how and created a brand from scratch that's incredibly successful today that we sold. So, but then I realized, wait a second. If somebody doesn't have their own original idea, which I don't have a million ideas I want to give birth to, and most people don't, what do? Aha, a franchise. And the question becomes, what is the franchise that is right for them?
Right.
Corporate America is fantastic, but it's not for everybody. And a lot of people today feel like they're stuck and they don't know what to do. That's where I come in. And the best part about what I do is I'm a free resource, absolutely free. Real estate brokers, agents, they get paid a commission when you guys close a deal, when you close a deal. In my case, I get paid by the brands the same amount, whether whether you use a franchise consultant or broker like me or not, you pay the exact same franchise fee. So I am truly a 100% free resource, and I insulate people from getting 7,000 phone calls because they've done all these creative Google searches at 1 o'clock in the morning, panic that they don't like what's going on in their life.
So you're essentially the consultant, almost like when you're in high school or college and you've got a dean and you go there like a career counselor and they're like, hey, based on what you're telling me, your need for structure or need for flexibility or whatever it might be, combined with capital, combined with travel, combined with, do I have to be an owner operator or can I just do something like you did and build a whole bunch of franchises and sell it kind of quickly? Based on all that, you're going to recommend some different franchises for them.
Ken, that was probably the best description of what I do
that
cool. Maybe anybody has ever said. And you nailed it. And within all that, this is what I say. So if you're coming to me, I'd say, Ken, I'm going to take you through your what, not your why, your what.
Right.
What is your investment? Some people tell me things like, well, that depends. It does not depend. I have a guy that was worth a fortune come to me and he goes, I got 5 million sitting in my shoe. What do I do with it? I want to help the kids. And we figured it out. It ended up being an automotive brand. But I start with the what. What is your investment? Some people say, I got 50 grand, some extra cash as well. I'm thinking I want to do a loan. Okay, got it. So that equates to a $200,000 SBA loan. You put down about 20%. You got a little extra working capital. You might have some home equity. We're not going to touch that. Great. I'll refer you to my lenders. We'll get you set up, etc. That's the investment part. $200,000 franchise is what I'm looking for that individual. No problem. I got a lot of great ones. Then we get to your role. What is your role? Are you going to be full-time or are you going to keep your day job? Great corporate guy in tech just came to me, decided he was going to keep his job because I recommended he keep his job. No reason to quit. And he got a franchise. He's going to stay at his day job. He's going to hire a GM. He's going to be what we call semi-absentee. Semi-absentee in franchising is defined as 10 to 20 hours a week in the business. Working on the business, I should say, not in the day-to-day of the business. Might help with doing Zoom interviews. You might look at financials, but you're not physically in that business. So those are the two biggest what's, investment and role. And then it becomes, what are your interests? What are your goals?
Right.
How long you holding on to this thing? Franchises are incredible for your exit strategy. You're going to sell a franchise for 3 to 5 times cash flow. And so many franchises can look ugly. Ugly. I got a guy that was in the mortgage business, an air conditioning franchise recently. But that air conditioning franchise, $150,000 investment, the average franchisee is doing $3.5 million in revenue.
Wow. What's the I mean, I'm sure you may know these stats as part of what you're doing, but I have to think, I've heard all those old stats that I don't even know if they're completely true, but where people say like 80% of small businesses fail within the first couple of years, and 90% within the first five. And I would have to think, I mean, franchising, the whole attraction to it, if you're going to do it, I mean, the negative sides might be, right? Like if someone, like you're saying, has an idea, wants to be more creative, doesn't want to give someone else much control. But then on the positive side, it's like, look, this is a proven formula. So if you're like a playbook runner, come in, run the playbook. As long as you've got a good location and you work hard and apply your leadership, you're probably going to be okay. Do you have stats around the success rate of franchisees versus independent business owners out there?
I'll make it pretty simple. The stats you threw out there are probably pretty darn close. You know, where 90% of businesses fail within X amount of years, and a tremendous amount fail the first year. Franchises, the stats are definitely better. Now, the group that has the real stats that you don't always see is the SBA, Small Business Administration, because they love, franchising is regulated by the federal government, the Federal Trade Commission, and the SBA, and they're in cahoots in a positive way to support each other, to stimulate the economy by continuously lending money. And they love franchises because they know the success rate. All these lenders that are SBA lenders, if they have too many defaults, they are not going to be able to lend that much more money. I mean, there's different ways that they do it. So the SBA, they keep those numbers pretty tight to the vest. But I can definitely assure you that franchises, if I'm going to find you a franchise, you are going to have, if you're going to fail, it's going to be all you. It's not
right.
It's not going to be the brand. And that does happen. There are smart people that fail in franchises, mainly because a life event happens, or all of a sudden their dream gig, Ken calls and says, hey, I got you that biotech gig that you
right.
at such company. But other than that, there are a lot of franchise mismatches, like in relationships and marriages. You marry the wrong woman, you marry the wrong, spouse, partner. And that happens in franchising. They think it's going to be one way and somehow it wasn't. Look, this, when people can say whatever they want to get hired for a job. And people can also say whatever they want and fool a franchisor into thinking, hey, there's a cultural fit here. And sometimes there isn't. Now, let me tell you two significant parts of the franchise process that helps you avoid that failure. And that is, number one, there's a franchise disclosure document. Every franchise brand puts it out. 23 items are in it. Item number 19 is the earnings claim. It might say sales, it might say profitability, it might say a mixture of both. The franchise attorneys, depending on who the brand's attorney is, want things set up a certain way. It's not necessarily averages, it's means, it's this, it's all this stuff. And but it's great information. But let me tell you the most significant thing, besides an opportunity to meet the executive team, you go through what's called the validation stage. Validation is amazing. Like, I had a guy that wanted to do a home care brand. That's what he wanted to do. And some people aren't that specific. They might be curious. And I kept reinforcing, I think home care could be fantastic for you and your wife. So he calls me one day and he goes, man, I talked to 3 different franchisees today and they're all happy and they're making money. Can I tell you what this last guy told me? I said, sure. He goes, I invested $140,000. I got an SBA Express loan, and I did $4 million in sales and my net was $1 million.
Nice.
So my guy's falling out of his chair that he's going to invest really in that case it was $140,000 investment. And I said, look, it's wonderful you got that validation. That's an outlier. Not everybody has those results. Look at the FDD, look at the item 19, you'll see the net franchise, the average franchisee is doing $1.5 million, whatever the number was.
Right.
So, but what I'm saying is, Ken, you have a lot of really good information in front of you to say. I ask people all the time, Ken, are you going to be an average franchisee?
Right.
Where are you in life?
But you actually have this. Yeah, not to interrupt, but you actually have the data. You
Sure.
have something to go on instead of when you're starting your own thing, as I've done a couple of times. You don't know. You don't know what the benchmark is. You're making it up as you go along. Versus if I get into Service Master or something like that, I can go, okay, well, the average franchisee, like you're saying, is 1.2 million. The high is 8 million. The low is 300,000, and the average, like I said, is the 1.2. So where do I think I fit in based on my work effort, my background, my location, my initial investment? I had a follow up question on that though. You've mentioned SBA
Yeah.
a few times, and you've mentioned their willingness to kind of go to bat a little bit more with franchisees, probably more than mainly because it's a proven concept, right? So for them, it's
Yes.
and now you've same reason it's easy to go into it. Like you've got numbers, so you can show them. Here's the average. Here's what we're putting in. Is it pretty easy then? I mean, are they, and you mentioned 25% down, I think. So is it pretty easy? Someone comes in with 100 grand that the SBA is going to loan them 400, assuming their credit's okay?
Yeah, so there's two things. It's 20 or 25% down, depends, could be as low as 20. Brands, the SBA lenders will lend when brands are on it's called the SBA registry.
Got
So
it.
new franchise brands need to go through a process to get registered, and then you can get, money for your franchisees. Franchisees need a 680 credit score. You don't get brownie points like in a mortgage where your rate's reduced because you have an 800.
Right.
Um, but the SBA lenders that I have are fantastic. I have quite a few that they do their own underwriting, they're preferred lenders, and they're looking at you. They have to believe that based on Ken's past and his resume, that he can own a 1 hour heating and air conditioning. And franchising is proven in that you don't need the technical skills.
Right.
You don't. You just need a past proven history of some sort of success, which can be defined a million ways. But to answer your question, 20 to 25% down. And then post-closing liquidity, a fancy term that SBA lenders will talk about. All right, that's great, Ken. You gave us the 100 grand down to get your 400, but show me that you got something else in the bank.
Yeah. Operating capital to
Yep.
make sure it's going to work.
Exactly, because cash is king. A lot of people, independent franchises, can go out of business because they're lacking capital or poor financial planning. So that is part of the process with great SBA lenders. They will make sure that your business plan is sound. If not, they might be the one to say, Ken, let's get you a little more capital.
And your job before all of that is to talk to them and say, your job is, first of all, to see through the smoke and mirrors if they're trying to BS that they're going to be an owner operator because that's what the franchisee wants, but they're really not going to do that. And so
Yes.
one of your jobs to make sure that both sides are matching up well, that they are funded, that you're pointing them towards the right opportunity, and that they're going to have the operating capital after things get started. So I'm curious in your world, do you work with, I know you have a podcast based on this. I know I thought I saw on your website that you had access to, was it like 700 different brands or something? Is that what I read? Did I read that right?
It's over 800 these days
Okay.
in literally every imaginable industry.
Okay. So if I've thought of a franchise name, there's a really good chance you've got a way in the door with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so the range, I think I heard you say, you might have even said it here earlier. I can't remember if I heard you in our conversation or earlier today, but some franchises are as low as, whatever, $50,000, $60,000. What are the larger ones? Like what if you're opening I've heard McDonald's franchise fees are pretty high.
Yeah.
But they might not even be on the radar of the biggest franchise. But what's the range here? What are we talking about? Is it
Yeah.
50 grand to a couple $1,000,000, or like what's the normal range?
Yeah, so let me just also clear something up because there's a lot of myths about franchising. There's only two fees, big fees, the royalties that are ongoing royalties when you get in the business, which could be 3%, 20%, depends. I have a brand that's 20% royalties, and people freak out when they hear that, but they give you an army
Sales reps and
of
stuff like that.
support.
Yeah.
So and it's tremendously profitable, but on the franchise fee for McDonald's is not expensive at all. Some of the franchise fees could be as low for some brands as 20,000, as high as 75,000. It just depends what they've put into it, because you get you have a right to use their trademark and all their uh, procedures and proven history and all that. And at the end of the day, what everybody needs to look at is profitability. What is the history? What do I believe I'm going to make? Don't get, it's kind of like shopping for a car, saying, oh my gosh, that Bentley is so expensive, or that Ford is so expensive. It's still about value and what are you getting for it, and are you going to be profitable? But to answer your question further, McDonald's, depending on leased property or buying property, the same thing with some daycares I have, could be millions of dollars, depending on what you're doing and if you're investing in real estate. So there are plenty of franchises you have to have $1 million net worth even to get into. However, there are an absolute ton of franchises. I get excited every time somebody says they have 50,000 in cash, maybe maybe 75,000, because I could virtually get them into hundreds of amazing brands.
That's really cool.
You don't need 500,000 in cash to get into a great franchise. I have an automotive franchise that just did a huge deal, and it's about 325,000 to open one. All in. That's franchise fee, working capital, construction, on average, right about 325. The top 50% of franchisees, their cash flow, their EBITDA number is $400,000.
Wow. So even if you go 3 times earnings, you're at over $1 million on EBITDA, and kind of out of the gate. Yeah.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, this is why franchising is so successful. I know of a franchisee that got into a business that he knew nothing about, thought it was a good, essential business. He just sold his business for $60 million. 60.
Whoa.
Bunch of franchises. He didn't create the brand. He just opened them in a couple of cities.
Nice. I gotta think this would have to be good for. I mentioned earlier, you and I think, are the same age, and for people that have had.
I'm much older, I'm sure.
I don't think so. I think we graduated. I'm 57, so there you go. Yeah, but I looked at graduation years, but I think for guys that have either been in business or been in corporate, especially, and then maybe now they're looking for the second act or the third act or whatever, where it's like, look, I've got 20 years, 30 years, whatever in corporate. I'm thinking of some of my old friends in corporate that are now, maybe finishing up their careers there, looking for like their second thing to do. They've got capital, they've got, they got time. They don't want to sit at home. And it's like they've got the know-how of knowing how to execute, build big teams, lead big teams. Yeah. Seems like they'd be like ideal people to blow up franchising,
Ken, that's the funny thing. Of course, anybody coming from a corporate gig, Fortune 500, you have a nice background. You understand communication, you understand work ethic, and all of those things that you need. But it's interesting. Some of those folks, when they leave corporate America, they come to me and go, what's the easiest thing you got? Like I have a guy that already did a franchise through me and then calls me back, and he had some real estate investments, and he says, hey, got some extra cash. What else you got that's even easier? And I gave him an incredible brand, a very niche brand. It's called Crusher. They go around and crush dumpsters. So think of commercial shopping centers, everyone in America. You pay a lot to get your trash picked up, these big corporations. What if a patent pending system truck came to you and crushed your dumpster in place? I should say the contents of your dumpster. And you could save up to 70% on your trash hauling or recycling or whatever. That's what this particular company does. And sounds crazy. Most of the businesses that I present to people, they look at me like I'm nuts. But I also try to warn them, because, Ken, people paint this picture. Doesn't matter what walk of life. When I was president of the Franchise Advisory Council for Wingstop, I already had restaurant experience. So I was off to a fast start. And on my council was an attorney, people from all walks of life. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
And they didn't necessarily know the restaurant business. So is there a little bit more of a learning curve? Of course. But why do people get in the restaurant business? They think it's this sexy business. I could feed my family. It's fun. The reality is, if you could do a restaurant, you could literally do any business, because
Yeah,
restaurants,
it's one of the
biggest,
hardest out there.
the biggest pain in the neck. There's more
Yeah,
ways to lose money than make money.
absolutely. I grew up in restaurants, and I mean, just God, all the employee issues they have. The margins aren't that high. The overhead's high. You've got perishable food. You've got, I mean, every.
Yep.
I agree with you. I mean, every challenge in the book. In fact, when I did end up in corporate America, I used to love young people that had a food service background,
Yes.
and turn them into sales reps, or turn them, bring them up into leadership and that kind of thing. So tell me about yourself personally. I know that, this has been your career. I mean, since the early Wall Street days, and turning over. Where did it lead you personally?
Yeah, I mean, this has been amazing. I mean, doing what I do, I can live anywhere. I live in Las Vegas. We're deciding whether or not we're going to do a second house now. But I made my wife retire last year. She was a assistant principal at a school, an elementary school. You know how that's going in most parts of America post-pandemic. I mean,
Sure.
it's not what it used to be. So we're looking to finally spend even more time together. This is my second wife, my perfect wife. My first one was my practice wife, I guess. And, I truly love helping people. When we're done today, I'm going to be with one of my business partners who's done franchise setup with his fleet of franchise attorneys for years. We're going to talk to an amazing corporate exec who already has a huge company, and now he wants to do a franchise staffing company.
Nice.
So we're looking to set him up for franchising. So I work typically 7 days a week when I feel like it, less otherwise. And I just love having fun. It's just, franchising is fun. Getting people into business ownership is fun. So whatever I can do to help people, that is my fun. Kids are all grown up, and financially, I've run into so many, three old men when I was much younger. And they told me the same advice, which was bizarre. I don't know if you're a big believer in fate like I am. I'm sure you are. They told me the same thing, Ken. You know what they told me? Put yourself in a financial position to retire, and don't. And
Right.
that's exactly where I am. I just
That's
help
a
people.
great place to be.
I work I don't need to work every day. I don't even need to work anymore if I don't want to. But I
Right.
enjoy the hell out of helping people, because most people, I am not a salesperson. I just got this testimonial that I swear is this long from a corporate guy. I could not have written this testimonial about myself any better. This isn't me bragging. It's just, he gave me this testimonial. I almost cried because he thought he was stuck in a corporate job. Not everybody is stuck.
Right.
If you have a corporate job and you're happy, it's all about your happiness factor. It's not about the guy next to you or the gal next to you or down the street. Are you happy?
Right.
What are your goals? These are the things. When I heard on one of your other podcasts, you were talking about this. I think it was Brene Brown and the vulnerability thing. I love when people get vulnerable with me.
Right.
People that have their walls up, I don't know if they're telling me the truth. I need to understand about you, and I can help you best. And that's what I just strive to do every day, and I will never retire. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Franchising has never been stronger in times of adversity, recessions, and whatever we're in right now. Nobody even can tell us what the heck it is. The reality is, this is the best time to get into a business, especially a franchise, because I know of corporate guys that were happy for years and had no reason to move.
Sure.
Now they're getting a little anxious and concerned that they don't control their destiny. Hey, Lance, I think I need a little bit of help. What do you think is good for me?
Sure.
That's how it starts.
It all depends, like you're saying, on who they're with, if they're happy. I mean, I know that I think for a lot of people, it's weird. You go through different things where you find out, I guess, like you're saying, we're in this post-pandemic whiplash economy, whatever it is. And some people are doing really well, and others, like you said, are kind of looking at it going, oh, I thought I was safe, but maybe I'm not, right? And if you're not, then maybe there's other things that you need to look at. Well, awesome having you on today. I really appreciate it. Love all that you're doing. Love that it comes from a place of contribution and serving others, which is really, really cool. And I'm going to keep track on you. Listen to the podcast. We'll definitely share how to get in touch with you in our show notes. Anything for our audience before we get going?
Yeah, I have a great free assessment on my website.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, my free assessment helps you and I both understand, based on your mindset, skill set, and life experiences, what brands or what businesses could be best for you. And I have several different websites, but the easiest is lancegraulich.com, just my name.
Awesome. Got it up right here. All right. Thanks so much, Lance.
My pleasure, Ken. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.